Ladies and gentlemen, we begin mindset coaching with Rommel. Rommel's got some notes for us typed up here. We'll be going over them and talking about all of this stuff. Welcome, Rommel.
Hello, hello.
Sire.
You have a different mic selected on Discord?
Maybe. Let me double check it.
Sounds like you're really far.
Okay. How far away am I now?
That sounds like your stream.
Okay.
Great.
Yep. I had a fresh Windows install. This is the first time I've launched Dota since the Windows install, so my Discord also was poop. Thank you.
All good, all good.
So we've got an awesome set of notes here. Respect. So you want to work on your mental game leaks. I resonate with your first one of struggling to play after a win, where you have the spike in your MMR and it's like, okay, we're moving up, but do I want to mess with that again and roll the dice when I'm at a better point than I was before I just won? In poker, they call it winner's tilt, and it's generally known to decrease your will to practice because you're worried about your rank dipping down again, which would put all your skill and path into question of like, why am I going down in rank if I should be improving as a player? That's really frustrating. So sometimes you're a little bit anxious about diving back into the ladder if you know that you're going to go down in MMR at some point soon in the future. Mm-hmm. So the trick that I do to get around that, the fear of the waves of your MMR going up and down, is to not think about your win-loss for the day. I would say throw that out the window completely. Never think about win-loss. Like when people in chat tell me, oh man, I went 7-3 today, I have no idea what happened in those games. They could have got dealt really easy games for those 7 relative to their level, and they didn't really even play that well, but they feel good about the score 7-3. So it's a bit deceptive. You could also have really griefy games and have a low rank and you had to report a bunch of people. Those days it's more like community service, right? Where you're keeping the community safe, you're letting people know who's a bad actor, and you just try your best to make use of the practice. Don't think about win-loss at all. Think about it like laps in the pool. Every match is one lap in the pool. It's not always the fastest, best lap of your whole life. You don't have to put that level of pressure on it. It's just one amount of exercise where you're exposing your mind to the knowledge and the skill set of Dota, and you're also exposing your hands to the dexterity challenge of Dota. So you're challenging yourself on multiple fronts, mental fronts and physical fronts, and then also on social, emotional fronts. It's a super, super, super stressful environment. Like you're basically kind of doing a virtual war. This is an actual fight to the death, to the destruction of the enemies, to be as annoying and like map control-y and consuming as possible on the map. Like it's a super hostile environment. So you have to respect the fact that that's going to put a stress on your brain. And you don't want to lose at that because it feels really bad to lose with how vicious it is to lose in Dota 2. So each match is a lap in the pool. It is not a win. It is not a loss. As your coach, I do not care about your win-loss for the day. I actually care zero about that because you could have gotten really easy games or you could have gotten hard games, and I have no idea. From a 7-3 or whatever the fuck you did. Oh, I went 9-1 today. Good job. Maybe you had a downswing before because you were doing stuff wrong. I'm not impressed at 9-1. It means nothing to me. What means way more to me as a coach is for you to sit down at your desk and before you hit ranked, you say, what is my intention? What is my practice emphasis? If you don't have a practice emphasis and you ladder, you can't care about win-loss at all either because you're not even training anything. You're just kind of queuing and hoping that improvement happens, but you're not setting an intention of this match. The minimap is what I'm focused on. And as long as I'm looking at the minimap more often than usual, I'm learning and I'm training stronger. I'm getting those laps in. Every time I look down at the minimap is like a rep at the gym where you're lifting, you're doing a little bit of work. Even if your teammates are shit, even if your lane is shit, even if you make some silly mistakes and fall behind early on, you can still get off the mat and still keep putting those reps in. You can put the reps in good weather or bad weather. That's the test. So yeah, winner's tilt. Basically overcome that by saying my win-loss doesn't matter. I lose nothing by losing a match. I gain a lap in the pool, and I gain a rep at the gym, testing my mind and then testing my strats.
So when you are like in the thick of it, and like let's say you've played a couple and you're starting to, because like I find that when I'm not stressed and I'm like, let's say I'm just fresh to the game, I'm able to say, yeah, this is just a lap. But then as I play more, right, and as things start to annoy me, things start to tilt me, it's easier to forget about these things. So how do you recenter, or how do you like maintain this after all of the, I guess, the stress you put yourself through playing a lot?
Breaks between matches are really, really important. Queuing matches back to back is very dangerous. I think that's normally how residual tilt builds up, where you get like slightly tilted from one game because it was pretty scuffed. Even if you won, it was like kind of annoying maybe. And a lot of people, they don't really notice that because maybe they're still at like a 2 to 3 level tilt. Like you're not really that mad. It was kind of annoying and you're kind of stressed about it, but you can deal with it, whatever. You'll just queue into the next match. And if the next match is equally tilting that one, now you're at a 6 tilt. And now you're actually, I think what you're talking about here, where it is weighing on you and you're getting kind of rustled and annoyed. So I would say get up after every game and do a full reset of bathroom break, water, just stretch your body, move around. You have to restore your blood flow. That's a big part of why we get really stressed and anxious in Dota, is because we are hunter-gatherers. We're creatures that are meant to be moving and chasing things and building stuff and fighting. Like we're very active creatures. But in Dota, we sit down in a chair, so it's actually pretty confusing to our body to be under so much stress and to not move. It's kind of like whenever you get startled or something and you get an adrenaline rush, you want to run. Like your body is sending signals to run and to do stuff. And Dota does that to us because it's so high stress and so high APM and action on the map. And if we're just sitting in a chair, we get frustrated and tense. Even if we win, there's a tension that needs to go somewhere. So even just like standing up for like 5 minutes, you would go into the next match way more prepared and confident and just well balanced, because you got to reset your blood flow. You got to stretch your body. You got to mentally kind of go through what happened in the last match so you can process it a little bit, and then go into the next game focused on that next match and not on what happened in the one before. So
okay.
I think the question for you would be, how many minutes of a reset do you need to feel good, and how many do you take currently?
I don't know. Actually, I've never measured that. I mean, if it's a win, it's usually just chilling at that point, right? Because I have that loss aversion, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a loss, it's like insta. Like I want to get my MMR back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really. I tend to take breaks when I win, and then not take breaks when I lose.
Okay.
That seems to be my pattern.
I have a challenge for you. Every time you lose, actually, we'll say after every game, typing this in your Discord DM, after every match, check player net worth at 10 minutes. That's your check for assessing how the early game went and who is ahead and who is behind. Because understanding how you should feel about the match really depends on you knowing where the mistakes were on the team, like relatively speaking, and from who, like who was this far behind in this part of the match. And that allows you to balance your expectations of, should we have won based on how I played and based on how everyone else played. Because you could have like an S tier game for yourself where you're like feeling really macho and like making sick plays and really playing your character well and feeling dialed in, and you've got 4 people who are checked out on your team. You're not going to win those games, but you're going to work really hard, and it's going to be frustrating. Like that's definitely a situation that occurs. You just got to take that as the dice roll was not there for you. You had to roll for teammates, and your roll was that low that you have to pay that sort of tax. So
Okay.
yeah, but check the 10-minute net worth. That's the thing that I always do to clarify like my emotion for the match versus what actually went down. So
Okay.
just checking my own last match at 10 minutes, I was very ahead. Like I have a whole bunch of net worth, so I won my lane, so I can give myself credit for that. But we ended up losing the match later on, and the main issue would be me not figuring out how to stay alive in fights in the mid game. My early game I give myself credit for, but then I say, okay, this was my mistake in the mid game that caused us to lose. And the more you can explain each loss, the more prepared you are to go into the next match, and the faster your growth rate will be.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So losing streaks feel pretty bad. What do you do for physical exercise? Is there anything that you have?
I'm a climber, so I
sick.
go climbing
How often do you go?
about 3 times a week.
Oh, hell yeah. The thing that's really impressive about climbers is the grip strength that you develop with it is so much higher than a normal human would have, because you have to lift your body weight around.
It is very, very fun.
You must have good strength to weight ratio then.
Maybe. I'd like to think I do. I've only been climbing for like a year and a half, 2 years, so I'm not super strong, but it has been something I've been consistently doing.
Very good. So you have, on days where you have bad streaks, you're especially sour post-session. You went 0-3 in Valorant, 0-1 in Dota, and you're very tilted in the Dota. So, yeah, I would guess, what does an 0-3 in Valorant feel like? Like, how much did you feel like that was on you, or was that just bad teams?
I mean, a fair bit. I could always point. I'm very introspective, so I can always point to things that I could improve on. But it still hurts. It still hurts to lose, because I also think about like, oh, had I not thrown this round, or had I done this better, I would have won. So it still stings, even though I could identify that I could have improved. And especially going back to back to back losses really frustrated me.
Gotcha. What would you say?
I record all my VODs and everything, so I'm like really, really into improving.
How often do you study your VODs?
Every day. And I did it in StarCraft, to do it in Dota. I have gotten coaching, so
Nice.
it is something I'm really serious about. But I never really did it for my mental game. I feel like I need to, just because I feel like I'm such a good student of games. But yeah, mentally, I'm very weak, I feel like.
Have you considered forgiving yourself before your loss happens? Like at the beginning of a session, forgiving yourself for the mistakes you're about to make?
I've never forgave myself, no.
Okay.
I've never framed it in that way.
I know it's weird and it sounds kooky, but I think about it like Gladiator. We who are about to die salute you. We who are about to stress ourselves heavily with hyper-competitive games against each other in yelling environments salute you. Like, you are going into the thick of it. It's a place where mistakes are going to happen due to a variety of factors. The question is, how can you navigate that storm? And you're going to make mistakes. Like, that's a fact for every person. Mistakes are in your future and they're in our past. So whenever they're showing up, if you just admit, hey, human error is a thing. I'm a human. I make errors and I just want to study them and I want to learn. You can have compassion on yourself. Like, you just cast a forgiveness spell on yourself ahead of time. So when you make the mistake, you're like, okay, so that's what it is. You just write it down and you just focus on that for next time. It's just more like mistake gathering and collecting information about what's going on in the match. So you can be more like a scientist about it rather than someone who's putting their ego and their self-worth on the line. How you frame it has a lot of power over how you feel about it. So try forgiving yourself in advance if you feel like it. Yeah.
That's a good point. I've never done that. I'm just queuing up and I'm like, I just want to win. I want to get that MMR. And that's, I think, how most people frame it.
One expansion on looking at MMR and like big growth, like if I'm talking about going from an above average player, say like, you know, the StarCraft ranks at all?
Yeah, I played a lot of StarCraft.
Okay, great. So I would say like platinum and diamond, if you're at that level, like you're a gamer and you're going fast and you've got builds and you can be dangerous to people. You've got at least one optimized timing kind of a thing. But making that leap from diamond to punching into GM and being high masters, that amount of climb is not just this match of MMR. That's like 200 matches of MMR of just directly wins. So you would have to climb a shitload to get to that upper level. So the current like 25 MMR that's at stake means nothing. It means actually nothing. What matters more is your intention of practice over the next 500 to 1,000 games. In that window, you have the opportunity to go up pretty much a full bracket in any game that you play if you like really min-maxed all of your improvement and you focused everything on it. You would need to very aggressively like take edges and direct your whole life around your best energy goes toward the game. But the amount that you climb for a single match matters very little. It's how much value you get over 10 matches and 100 matches. Like it sounds like your notes are way stronger than other people's notes. So figuring out what are your main perpetrators of mistakes currently in each of your games. Like in Dota, what are the 3 main things that you're working on? In Valorant, what are the 3 main things you're working on?
Are you asking me, or is that like rhetorical?
How about both?
Yeah, so Valorant is always going to be aim. Like aim, I main Sentinel, which is like a defensive agent, so like setups, things that I'm trying to work on with that. Third one probably would be communication. I tend to over communicate, and probably it has to do with Dota as well and my tilts. Like if things aren't going well, I'm vocal about it. It might be annoying, but I'm trying to like manage people. Like, okay, you should do this, or like this is really bad, we should do that. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Off the top, go ahead.
One challenge I would give to you is to try not to rate things as being bad or good in terms of quality. Try to think about just the next correct move on the chessboard. And the way that I look at it for Dota is the next tower that either we want to be pushing or that we have to be defending as a team, and which towers we're going to give up. And that's like one of the anchor points that is consistent regardless of people's emotion level in the match. There's always a technically next easy objective for the enemy team and for you. Like if they're ahead, there's a next T2 that they're about to go at, and you can either decide for your team, are we going for this or not? But you don't really need to communicate that many things. Like you don't even need voice comms really to be a strong player if you had really good ping wheel. So understanding when things are getting tough, you should have a plan for what is my ideal communication method, for what information types do I need to get across, and where can I save energy? Like where are my comms not good, where I'm saying this is bad, like this is bad or this is shit. It's like just rating the quality as low, but it doesn't say what to do about it. Right. Go defend this T2. That gives people an actionable plan. So the way that I think about communication is you should communicate, if you want to min-max it perfectly, like an astronaut, where you care about nothing social aside from telling them exactly what they need to do to get the best move as fast as possible, as though time is precious, which it is in Dota. And no fluff, no filler, no opinions, no nothing. Just the game as it should be played in a dire situation where every second counts. And a lot of people, they're not used to that because socially speaking, humans are very relaxed. We have to kill time by talking very often. So a lot of people have a lot of filler, they have a lot of fluff, and honestly, they do vent at each other when they're stressed. Like that's a big part of why people get toxic and they get tilted, is they're all kind of venting negativity on each other that they felt from their real lives. So it ends up being a really hostile environment where they're all kind of venting that tilt. So when you're approaching that level, I would say just decide to take an extra long break after that match and just give more time to reset. If you got to that level of tilt, that your comms are changing, definitely take more time to just reset yourself, figure out what your intention is, and then kind of go back to that and start from zero.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess there isn't like a really good solution then for number one, other than just kind of taking more breaks. Because like I envy people who are able to just grind out like 10 games a day. I don't know how they don't go insane. Because I feel like that's what you need to get really good. And I had the same experience when I was like grinding poker. It felt like if I wasn't putting in 2,000 hands a day, like I'm not gonna get better.
Yeah.
Like it's and it was really hard for me because if you're on a bad run or you're like on tilt, you can't get anywhere because it's such a volume based game, and that's what I feel like.
Yeah, but gaming has volume as well. Like, what is your use of the time? If you're on winner's tilt and you just won, what do you do if not practice if you want to get better? Like, take a break, just chill.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't quite.
So you're talking about in the situation playing after a win, the solution to number one. Whenever you win, what does it make you want to do if you're trying to retain that MMR upswing? Like, do you like watch shows or play a different game? Like, where does the momentum shift?
Probably watching streams or watching the replay, just doing other things rather than not play. But then I feel like because of that, someone who can play 10 games a day is going to improve faster and better. But maybe it's bad to compare, but I feel like I hurt my progress as a player by how little I play. I wish I could play more.
Oh, I see. Okay, the counter to this, in my opinion, would be to think about your fire and your energy that you have to throw at competitive gaming per day. Like, that's a fixed amount of hours of focused game time that you can technically improve and exert your mind in all this. So you want to listen to your body. When you sit down, you want to rate, like, how prepared am I? Am I rested? Do I feel like if I were to be stepping into a boxing ring, would I be performing well or poorly? And it's going to vary based on your situation. You want to think about how many hours of work do I want to do? And if you really want to improve, you sit down not hoping to go up. You sit down with, this is my intention and this is my practice volume. It is the same as poker. You just need to put in, instead of a volume of hands, a volume of games. So you sit down to play 6 Dota games or something, and you just play 6. It doesn't matter if it's 3 wins and 3 losses or 6 wins or 6 losses. Like, none of that matters. If you put in that amount of practice, you set out to do that at the start of the day. Like, it should be just, I spend my competitive energy today at this. You have a certain amount. Like, no one has infinite energy to be competitive. We have to sleep, we have to rest, we have to have social time, stuff like that. But you have a certain amount of ammo, a certain amount of juice, of toughness, of being able to go in there and put in practice. And if you're winning and you're playing well, you have more energy. So instead of maybe playing 6 games of Dota and then feeling kind of done, you could play 10 or you could play 11 if you really felt like, I know what I'm practicing, I'm gaining from every match, I'm playing well. So spend more energy when you're running hot, when you feel like, I took good care of my body, I'm rested, I'm excited, I'm ready to go. I feel like I can play quite a bit today.
Yeah, it always starts like that for me, and then as I win, then I start to get that, like, that winner's tilt. So it's like busting through that and continuing to put it in. Like, as the day goes by, it gets harder and harder for me.
Spend your fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I would say, one of the most glorious things I've experienced with regards to gaming is whenever you make a major breakthrough as a player and you become the next tier of player by understanding certain fundamentals and showing up more prepared than those players, and then climbing really fast relative to your practice phases. You have different phases of growth as a player depending on your emphasis and your time and motivation toward it. Sometimes you have like a knowledge building phase where you're understanding more about the game, like playing more different heroes and just gathering a bunch of knowledge. And then you have the periods of refinement and sharpness where instead of you practicing many different things, you try to make a smaller set of characters as perfect as you can and focus on really tight things like item timing benchmarks and like death zones for yourself on certain maps, and learning each map and where you tend to die and why, so you can categorize your different mistakes. Like, people have different phases in their practice, and then some people don't really push at all. So you have to really kind of break down, am I in a phase of my life right now where I really want to climb? And if so, how am I doing that? Like, what are my main methods of practice that set me apart of the same people at my tier? What are the people at the tier higher than you in Dota doing?
Well, it feels like all of them just play a bunch. That's like at the level I'm at now. Like, I'm at the point where, because there's so much variance and the edges are really small, the only way to realize those edges, and it sounds so much like poker, is putting in a lot of games. And so every like 9K, 8K player that I've seen, the reason why they're there is because they play like 6-7 games a day. But it's so hard for me to play 6-7 games a day just because of like mental. Like I can maybe put in 3 good games, and then if I'm playing anymore, I'm just like either tilted or like fatigued. So that's kind of like, for context, I'm at 6K right now. So yeah, that's just kind of what I've learned. Once you get to a certain point in Dota, you can't just like cheese your way. You just have to like grind it out because there's so much variance, it feels like.
Yeah, a lot of teammate variance. And from what I've heard, as you get higher up, a lot of the behavior types get worse because the bad actors know even better how to manipulate and throw games. So compassion upon you for having to deal with that. I'm sorry for the behavior of Dota gamers.
Yep. I know it gets worse when you do like Immortal Draft, but I'm not quite there yet. But I'm not looking forward to it because there's going to be a lot of non-games, and that's one thing I've learned from higher ranked players. There's just like 30-40% of your games are just non-games. It's just noise. And that's and I'm already having trouble dealing with just regular noise, like of like just poor teammates. But it seems like another beast.
Yeah, one counter to that I've used consistently is to marvel at the fact that humans are a great ape species and that apes can use computers. Like, it's pretty advanced relative to being hunter-gatherers out in nature. There are a lot of moving parts that are unnatural to us, so to expect humans to play this really well and to have empathy without seeing each other face to face, it's a pretty big ask. So in that sense, I kind of forgive Dota players for being hostile in the environment because it's a high stress environment and there are low empathy kind of activators for people. You don't get the same face-to-face communication of, if you really bully someone, usually there's like a facial reaction, like there's a grimace, and you know that you hurt someone and there's more of a cost, and the group kind of sees that and it's like, oh damn. But whenever we have all of that separated from each other and we're probably never going to see each other again, there isn't really as much of a reason to feel the emotion of other people on the team. It's like, these are the people who are ruining my hour and I'm going to take out my anger on them. It's more of that vibe, but it's kind of the fundamental situation of the game. So we're under stress and we're not very gentlemanly. Yeah, so losing streaks are tough, and then you have winner's tilt on the other side of the balance. Do you get people hassling you in particular? Like, how do you deal with that situation?
Not very often. It's usually people who don't I'm not sure how to like describe it. Like, I don't get people, if people like hassle me, it doesn't bother me that much. It's really them griefing me. There's like I'm not sure how to articulate it, but yeah, like talking about like number 3, like this offlaner guy, like this guy like really irritated me.
So I'm reading the example here. They don't pick second phase. What role are you as a reference?
Sorry, I should have put, I'm a mid player.
Okay.
So usually it's like safe lane or mid pick fast, but safe lane picked, so then usually mid laner gets last pick, right?
Yes, and for people who don't know, listening, the mid laner is normally expected to have last pick because their matchup matters a lot and it's a 1v1 matchup. So if you can give the mid laner last pick, that's really nice. Off laner is usually supposed to pick second phase, yeah.
Yeah, I played Cheese Heroes mid too because I'm a Meepo player. So like it's really important I get last. But then like because he forced me into something that is not, I don't know how to say it, courteous. It's not what the culture is. It annoyed me, and I lost a lot of gold. And then from that point, I was because that was the same day I had done very poorly in Valorant. It was my mental was just like shot at that point. Yeah, and it shows in the game.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much a hassle, but it's like the behavior of other people just annoys me. And
well,
sometimes
laying the facts of the battlefield out for you and then giving yourself compassion for those, you had to pick in the wrong phase. So someone is basically griefing the draft, and then they grief the draft again. So you're walking into a game with less gold than you would normally have, with less of a good counter pick to the overall draft than you normally would, and then also not really set up well by their pick. So you had 3 different grievances to deal with in the early game that were of no fault of your own whatsoever. So the way that I kind of have framed this to feel less upset at myself and more so I'm rating an Uber driver is I roll a D20 and I say, what was the teammate quality that I had here? For that particular situation that you listed out, that's very low quality. Like, that's going to give you a very hard game. I'm not nearly as good at you at mid or any other role at the moment, but not getting to pick last mid feels very bad because you just have tougher fights for the whole rest of the game, so you know you're going to have a hard time. And then on top of that, it also states that they're not very communicative with you and they don't really care about prioritizing the respected order of Dota. So feels very bad. You have 3 reasons to be upset, and I think a counter to letting the stress weigh on you is to accept the stress. So whenever that happens, okay, say these are the 3 shits that I had to deal with in the draft, and I forgive myself of that. This is bad weather to me. It's not you. You still have the whole match ahead of you, and you can give them hell, even if it's a tough match and maybe you don't end up winning it, and you can practice. So every time you step into lane, you can practice. Maybe you're practicing from a tougher position or a better position. You can just think of those as a situational deal that's just based on random chance because it was out of your control. So you can't be mad at, well, you can be, but you don't need to be mad about the circumstances that were basically a dice roll to you. You had no influence over who that offlaner person was, when they were going to pick, or what they were going to pick. It's out of your hands. You can report them for griefing, and maybe you did, and that would be fine. But yeah, it sucks, and you can forgive yourself, accept the stress, don't fight against it, and then just accept I'm now playing from behind, and I need to work on playing from behind because everyone does.
Yeah, it's just because I want to be able to react better because then like it shows in the game because like I like tipped the guy because he was feeding. So it's like I was starting to like, it was starting to affect my gameplay, and I want to be able to like act better with that. But it's hard because like once you're like, like once you reach that emotional threshold, you're just not thinking logically. It's like everything you're saying makes perfect sense. Like we should do these things, but once you're already stressed, like it seems like there's like no point. Like there's like you're already lost. You're a lost cause. So I'm just wondering how you would save yourself from that. Is it just trying to catch it before? Then if I'm already like there, then
I would advise finding a healthy venting strategy is what I would call it. A way that you can articulate what's going on in a way that you feel like you get things off your chest, but you don't tilt yourself or the enemy team, but you articulate what's shitty about the situation. I don't know how much you've watched of my banter when I play, but a lot of times I'm sarcastic or I'm kind of ironic with how I joke with people and stuff that can poke fun at people, but it's also a way that I get to vent if people are being an ass or whatever, and I'm kind of playing it back at someone. Like we do need to process the emotion that we're feeling, and we do need to let it go somewhere. That could mean just speaking aloud to yourself. Like that's a huge tool and edge that you have as a person, is you have self-control over your own mic activation, and you're completely allowed to vent. Like you shouldn't bottle stuff up and just expect to be a samurai robot who never feels emotion. Like I'm not going to expect that of you. No one should. You can't expect that of yourself. You're going to feel the emotion. Just get it off your chest and focus on what's ahead of you. Like, what is the next objective? Their behavior is out of my control. That's a commentary on society of us not teaching each other to be compassionate. Sorry, humans. But for you to be able to go through those emotional things and then not feel at fault for that, because that's normal. It's normal for you to be tilted because these situations are directly tilting. So you expect the tilt and you accept it when you receive it, like it's a little bit of psychic damage. We all agree to receive psychic damage from Dota 2 based on how the games go and how we treat each other. So just accepting that for what it is and being able to vent to yourself without miking at your team and venting at them means that you're basically letting off the steam in a way that isn't making your own team's morale worse. because your morale is kind of its own score, and you can use your charisma, you can use persuasion techniques, you can just have a happy-go-lucky kind of attitude or have a confident attitude, and you can guide your team's morale. So Dota is almost more so in a lot of games based on the morale management of the teams rather than just the skills and the techniques of the heroes. There's like the hero interaction, which is all the fundamentals of the game, but many teams just lose because they get critically butt mad and they refuse to work together.
Yep. Yeah, so that's definitely a tough thing. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to like feeling that frustration, and then like finding an outlet, because my outlet in this game was my teammates. I have never done like self-talk, like spoken out loud. It's all just mindful stuff, like thinking about stuff. So maybe I give that a try. But yeah, I do tend to, when I'm tilted, start to be hypercritical or just straight up like talk to people and vent what their decision. Like this Sven, I was like, yo, you picked offlane Sven. You deserve this. So it was kind of like it does have that, how do I say it? Like that cathartic feel to flame.
Yeah.
Tell someone that.
Well, you do understand the fundamental of the game, and you feel like they deserve to be lectured, which is true. The way that I would challenge you to frame it, if you're in that exact same situation, would be to tell them that a lot of people will get tilted by a Sven offlane pick. You don't even need to say and admit that I got rustled by your offlane Sven pick because it's shit. You don't even need to say that. You can just communicate to them, I actually did that in my last game. A lot of people are going to be tilted by that because, and then you explain the reasons for it. And then it gets stated before the whole team. There's a technical reason why this was not a good idea. You get it out of the way, and there's nothing else that needs to be said about it. They gave you a harder game by their pick, and also by their pick timing, which is not cool. So if you just state the fact of the battlefield, then you can focus completely again on the match. And you could say privately to yourself without hitting push to talk, like, I hope that he learns from this, or it's out of my hands now. Like, you can vent and process it a little bit because you have a job to do in fighting your mid lane. Like every game, your job is to go mid and fight. And you clearly care a lot, which is a huge edge over many players. And you're also willing to work on your mindset and work on your mental game, which is a massive edge. There have been people who I've tried to work with in Dota who do things like when they're in a tough match, they'll mute and deafen to their whole team and just completely shut off and just kind of refuse to play with the team. It's really interesting that they don't want to prioritize linking in with the team and figuring out how to communicate, because communication is such a huge edge. And clearly, if you're using your mic a lot, you have the capacity to be a really good leader on your team. The question is, how do you deal with good weather and bad weather? And those are kind of the two big questions of number one and number two, which is, how do I deal with good weather when things are going really well and I don't want to mess it up anymore? And how do I deal with bad weather of situations that are clearly griefed and are scuffed and it's out of my hands and I'm tilted about it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that when I win games and I'm like I'm pretty much the IGL in all my games, and I usually get pretty good reception when, you know, things are going well. People are listening to my calls, but then like on the opposite end, if the game isn't going very well, then yeah, I can tend to be a lot more negative. Like, why are you not doing the whole, like, why are you doing this? We should do this. This is bad. You know, that kind of thing. So yeah, the bad weather is something that is definitely my weakness when it comes to like leading. And I've considered in the past too, like if it's getting to the point where I'm getting tilted, I should just stop calming, because I feel like I'm doing more harm than good by continuing to talk. Yeah. But in the end, I still end up talking, but I don't know a good strategy.
Yeah, I think assessing what is the quality of the tone that I'm bringing right now is one, and you could say that a 10 out of 10 is like the most inspiring fucking Superman Thor character that's just making everyone feel jazzed up and able to win the fight. And then a 0 is someone who's like the most horrible toxic BMer calling everyone shit. And you have to basically figure out, where do I feel like right now? Like, am I about to encourage my team and say, fuck yeah, let's fucking go, we got this? Or am I feeling like y'all are a bunch of shitty degens who are not respecting the game and you deserve to lose this game? Like, where are you? And it sounds like you're arriving at that question of at what point do I need to take a step back from comms and try to just focus on hitting creeps and getting space for myself.
Yeah, it's hard to. It's very stressful too. So it's hard to do these calculations of like where I'm at mentally at the same time as playing. So yeah, that's a skill I feel like in itself, to be able to keep your cool and to know like, okay, yeah, I'm starting to reach the bottom threshold. I probably need to take a step back and like evaluate. So maybe that's something that I'll try to. That'll be my laps in the pool. I'll just play and try to assess my mental state at all times, and then figure out like when I'm getting to that point of being too low.
Yeah, try the 1 to 10, just see where you're at, and then also track where you are when you sit down. Because when you first start, you're not always starting from an evenly stressed point. Like sometimes there's some drama that people were yammering at you about that you kind of got a little bit worn out from, or you're underslept or something. If you have less of a buffer and like a mental toughness meter for the day, just kind of acknowledge that too. And remembering, forgive yourself before you play, because you are going to make mistakes. Yeah, and also try forgiving your teammates too.
That's hard. That's very hard. But yes, I need to be more forgiving, because I set such a high standard for myself as well, because I do kick myself a lot. So then I can't really do that vocally to myself. It's all mental. But then like the way I would lash out, I guess I would say, or flame someone would be the same way I would do mentally if I make a mistake. So yeah, I think that's something that I need to be better at, because I do tend to, even with friends that I'm trying to teach, like I'm trying to teach a friend Valorant right now, I will have the same kind of like tone of someone my skill level, even though he might not be my level, like he's a lot lower, but I will still like have this expectation of his ability and have a very bad tone. Like I think that the word tone is such a good word to use, because yeah, my tone tends to get worse as the weather gets worse.
Yeah, I think trying to help the team and like save the game from a tragedy, and just I guess a mental trick that I've done to get with this situation is many matches get so scuffed that if you were to win, it would be the greatest comeback of all time, and that ends up being a like backline defense that I have in my mind of, even if it's 17-1 on the scoreboard, if we won this, it would be the greatest comeback of all time. And in the greatest comeback of all time, you would be working your ass off the whole match, and you would be behind the whole game. So that's a scenario that's going to occur many times in your Dota career, being in that really critically bad situation where it's like fucking 18-2 and you're really against the ropes. There's only 1 or 2 places that you can actually make anything happen on the map, and it's really tough. You win some of those games, and you have to use those as a beacon of hope for yourself, to where even if the draft is really scuffed, the team that gets ahead does dumb shit every time. So you can rely on the dumb shit of the enemy team. At some point, they can get overconfident and dive the fountain, and you get a comeback. So having that readiness to just I accept all weather of matches, I accept all teammates, and I forgive you of your silly mistakes and your bad attitude, and I'm just going to try my best today to defend this goddamn Ancient. And if you go at it with that kind of grit and stubbornness of my job is to defend an Ancient, I don't care about what you have to say to me, that's going to give you a lot of resilience and basically free you from the weight of caring about other people's flaws. Because that's your energy that you're spending telling them what they're doing wrong, when you could be thinking more so about the details of, were there any things that I could have adjusted from that last fight in that last exchange as well? Were there any things that I could have done to warn them that this was about to happen to them? Because as a leader, you can improve your rank not just by playing mid better, but by playing charismatic leader of the team kind of gamer, where I'm able to steer these players in the right direction, communicating with them in a way that works. And that's a difficult thing to do at this bracket of Dota for sure.
Yeah, except what I'm hearing too is like this idea of acceptance. I think it's just really, really tough. And I think I do need to frame it in terms of acceptance / like forgiveness of things, instead of like, it's like, yeah, I've been wronged. I've been wronged, and I feel like I need to, like, the proper reciprocatory punishment, needs to be dealt. And if you wronged me, tit for tat, eye for an eye kind of deal.
Yeah.
That's how I feel sometimes when something goes wrong.
Yeah,
So
but you don't
trying
need
to
to invest that energy on them. You can just save
Right.
it for yourself and your own personal growth and be boosted. Like, you could basically spend the exact same amount of time that you would like lashing out at them. You could just reiterate one of your key mental reminders for the day. Just instead of saying it once in your head and lashing out at them, say it twice in your head. Like, that's more direction of you sailing your ship in the direction of forward progress. You don't need to worry about the jackals and the degens. You said you played a lot of poker. I was explaining in stream the other day that a jackal is someone that my friend told me to identify really early and then care nothing about anything that they say. Like, they're actually just a chicken on a farm who runs their mouth. You shouldn't think strategically any value about anything they say the whole time, because they just want to run their mouth and piss you off. There are a lot of those players in Dota. So being able to just kind of write those situations off of, had a jackal, had a draft griefer, like, these are just elements of a match. And then you could look back on that if you really wanted to get into the nitty gritty details. You could look back on it and say, how many matches where I did have a scuffed draft did I end up winning? Or how many times did there was someone who's being belligerent early on, but I carried their ass across the finish line anyway? Those things are a way that you can build confidence and hope in yourself and your ability to save scuffed games, because that's something that many people are worse at than like crushing a winning game. Crushing a winning game is easier because your team has momentum and their morale is high. If you're in a scuffed game, you have to not only pull their game situation up, you have to pull their morale up as well to get them across the finish line, which is way harder.
Right.
So the fact that you're able to discuss this, I feel like, is a step in the right direction of wanting to work on it and be a leader and be a good communicator. You're pretty perfectionist with yourself IRL, like overall, yeah?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. That, I think you were just saying, like, you project that onto your teammates as well. If you see their mistakes because you're caring about learning and stuff, and a lot of people aren't paying attention to their own mistakes, so you kind of feel like almost a social duty of, because I saw you fuck up, you deserve to know about this. Like, just to give you the respect as a gamer. And I understand that. Like, it is healthy to articulate mistakes. I don't think you should just coddle people and tell them they're the best and doing great when actually they're playing like shit. If you can call out a mistake and then call out the adjustment, it can be done in a way that actually makes the person feel better after it than worse. There was one example that I'll never forget. I was playing as Luna and I'm attacking a target, and the enemy team Winter Wyvern cast the ice on them, so they have like super high armor and they're getting healed. So my auto attacks were doing nothing, but they had like, I don't know, 100 HP, and I had a Lucent Beam available. Instead of my mid laner saying, "Oh, fucking Luna is so trash, like, why didn't you kill him?" He said, "Just so you know, the third ability is just armor. It's not magic resistance, so you can Lucent Beam there." They didn't say I was shit. They didn't say anything about the situation other than, "Just so you know, XYZ." So there are a lot of really calm ways that you can articulate things and get the point across, and you do that social duty of pointing out this person's mistakes so they understand the game better. You can do it in a way that's really chill. Think Mr. Rogers. Think like the characters in the world who are able to communicate without making others feel bad. You're just trying to help people figure stuff out for the love of the game. Because these are our brothers and sisters that we're playing with.
Yeah. It's just hard in the stress of a game. Yeah, it seems like it's a matter of like managing stress and trying to prevent yourself from getting to that point. That way you can be compassionate, be forgiving.
Yep. Yeah, ideally it takes weight off of you, because then you're not quite as responsible for carrying all of that weight. You should know which weight is not yours to carry. Your opponent's conduct, that's their weight to carry. Your comms, that's completely your weight to carry, but also theirs if you add burden to them.
Okay.
Yeah. Dota, very hard game. The social element is so interesting because it's completely absent from StarCraft.
Yeah. I felt like it's a lot easier to play Dota because you do have an outlet for things, but when I played StarCraft, man, I would just get really, really frustrated. But then it'd be like I can't really blame anybody else but myself. And that was very tough because like I peaked at 5,300 MMR like way back in the day, like really close to GM, but I didn't make the cutoff. And yeah, those were like some of the most stressful times when I was trying to grind, because it was really, really difficult back then to get GM.
Yep. 5.3k is quite high.
Yeah, it was. You know how like they have like the bottom 20 or something of GM like rotating out, whatever.
Yeah.
That's like I barely missed the cutoff there, but yeah, that was what I was playing the most. And yeah, that was the most anger I've ever felt playing video games, just because of the solo aspect.
Yeah, feels really isolating in that sense. I felt really shitty about myself when I first started StarCraft and I was actually bronze. It felt like all my gamer cred from being Gladiator in WoW or whatever and being high ranked in Han, like how was I good at those games but bad at StarCraft? It was like, am I just a noob? I felt really shit because there was no teammate to blame. It was like I just was that incompetent at something. Like, wow, that's pretty rough. But video games are very humbling. It's pretty interesting. I don't know if you saw the brain science studies on how much it improves the human brain to be able to put it under stress with these kind of games. You do actually get quite a bit of cognitive benefit from it.
Really?
Yeah. You have a lot of context switching under stress that you have to do in StarCraft, and accounting of multiple time-sensitive variables all in tandem with each other. Dota's the same way. You have wisdom runes, bounty runes, power runes, all that kind of stuff you have to juggle. Oh, can I go to number 4 of your notes?
Yeah, sure.
Losing games where you thought you played generally well, not perfect, but you weren't able to convert it to a win. It's easier for you to lose your lane and blame yourself and go next. Yeah, the thing about this is, I think of all the different war movies and stuff in fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, when someone has a good death and they technically lose the fight, but they do so in a really valiant manner. Like, have you seen 300?
Yep.
Yeah, they died. That's how it went. But they fought so bravely that they're awesome to see and they're great characters and it's a super awesome time. So you can kind of look for those Dota games for yourself as well. Like, what are the 300 matches of your Dota career that felt kind of similar to that, where the enemy team was super ahead and it was a really hard defense, but you ended up dragging it out and making it really hard for them and almost winning? Like, that kind of stuff feels pretty satisfying in a sense. So being prepared to look for that too, and being okay with playing from behind. It's simply a situation. It's a fact of the battlefield. I am behind now. That is neither a good nor a bad thing. It is a part of my practice. So I accept that I'm behind, and I accept that myself and my teammates made mistakes to get us to this point. But there is technically a next best move. So all I need to do is focus on the next best move.
Yeah, I think that's a really good framing. Like, not judging. I forget where I read that from. I feel like I read that somewhere, where you don't judge actions or events as good or bad. You just, I think it was in the mental game of tennis or something. You just talk about the event and what you should do next time. Like, acknowledge that event isn't ideal. I think that's the thing. Like, it's not bad or good. It's like, this just wasn't the strategically best thing to do. But you need to move on and figure out what the next best thing is. And I think that mindset is really strong. Yeah. Next best move for the team. Yeah.
I think Inner Game of Tennis. I still need to read that one.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like, you have to be like, it's easier to it's like a mental game thing where you don't want to judge things. You just want to be very objective, and that's going to help you separate that. Separate that bad mental from whatever is happening.
I'm reading over your Winter Wyvern. They missed 2 key opportunities to kill an AM, one where he missed a curse and another where AM was saved due to being affected by curse. This caused you to flame them for the decision making. Yeah, the thing that I would immediately jump at mentally is forgive the Wyvern, because they have some of the most strategically difficult spells to use of support heroes. Compared to like a just spitting damage dealer like a Jakiro. They just throw their shit on the ground and you're kind of good to go. Whereas Winter Wyvern very specifically can own a fight or fuck up a fight very hard. So that would be like a pre-forgiveness one for I have a Winter Wyvern on the team. This is a dice roll where very good or very bad things could happen because of this dragon.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So it seems like the forgiving thing seems like you're trying to manage your expectations and trying to like I like the word like you're being pre-compassionate to these people, because I don't ever think about that. I don't ever go into a game and say, oh, I have a wyvern, like this is something I might need to be mentally prepared for.
Yeah, volatile hero.
Yeah, it's for me, it was like a pre-flame, like, oh, I have this vet, like this guy is gonna like fuck my game up. But yeah, framing it as forgiveness seems to be a better mindset, and I will try to do that.
Hell yeah.
I like that word. I like the word forgiveness.
Yeah, it lifts weight.
Yeah, it does lift weight. I feel like a Christian. So.
Yeah. Are you religious at all?
I used to be Christian.
Me too.
Now I'm an atheist, but that's what it reminds me of. It's like, you have these creatures that you've created, and you just need to know, like, this is just how they are, and it's okay. Like, just forgive them. Yeah,
Dota has created a den of degens who are very good at harassing each other, either on their team or on the enemy team. So we accept that. I think of it like you're going into the Dota ladder, you are going into a den of pirates, honestly. Like the way that they behave with each other, even though we're at a distance, if we could stab each other, some people act as though they would, or at least they talk that way. It's pretty degenerate. And to be able to abide that space does require a lot of mental toughness. So you're basically trying to add on some psychic resistance for yourself by just being unaffected by certain things. And a big part of that is you can be less affected by the mistakes of others by being more prepared for those mistakes. And like you said, being pre-compassionate for their mistakes, where you don't even furrow your brow at them. You smile at them because you say, yes, I knew that you were going to mess up at some point, and this is what it is, and this is how it is now.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a kid.
Yeah,
you know they're gonna mess up, but you can't be hard on them. You just have to understand that that's just part of life.
Yeah,
and you just kind of roll with the punches and forgive them for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who are your main mid heroes that you're playing a lot?
Meepo and Visage. Right now, Visage is very broken, so Visage is who I am spamming.
Nice. Visage is awesome.
Yeah, it's because with the StarCraft, I'm surprised you don't play the micro heroes, because I feel like with the StarCraft background, I feel like you can abuse the zoo heroes very effectively, and it's very easy MMR.
Yeah, I should play Visage more. He was fun when I tried him.
Yeah, if you're interested, I wrote I'm really into like coaching and learning stuff, so I did write like a 17-page Visage guide.
You have a 17-page Visage guide?
Yeah.
Link it to me.
Guide as well. I wrote that as well.
Wow. Yeah, link. That's fucking sick.
I don't know if I've updated for 7.37, but he just got an extra broken facet, which it's not that hard to use, but for the most part, the other parts of the strategy are the same.
Nice. Why does Visage have 3 facets to choose from?
Chen has like 5.
What?
It's not.
Oh, cool.
It's not a binary thing. There's heroes with multiple facets.
Oh my god.
More than 2 facets.
He does have 5. You're right. Cool. Well, because you taught me a few things, you'll get refunded a little bit. Awesome. We said you had a hard stop at 6. Are you good, or you want to ask some more questions? I'm chilling. We started a little bit.
So maybe we can
after,
just quickly summarize, because I did write some goals. Like, this is what I like to do, at least when I try to teach. I like to give actionable steps, or like to give a summary. So I want to be able to play many games in a day without getting affected by the results. And so what do you think is like an actionable thing, or do you think that's like not even a realistic goal to have?
No, I think it's very good. So if I were to give you 3 actionable goals, we talked about a lot of different stuff. I wrote you some things in Discord DM, and I saw you were adding some to your document. Goal number 1 would be to assess your tilt level as you play. Like you could do this in a journal, just 1 to 10. How are you doing between your games? And then the next goal would be basically tracking your breaks and your practice volume. So you're managing your time of win or loss, doesn't matter. This is my schedule for the day of I'm going to take a food break at this point and I'm going to put these amount of hours in. The win or loss matters absolutely none. I am gaining knowledge and I'm gaining reps and I'm doing laps. And then the third element would be to be mindful of your comms and when you activate your mic. That would be probably the one that's most connected to assessing your tilt level and your communication as a whole. Because if you think about when or when not to push that button and you have more time to think about what you're going to say, usually the quality of your miking up is better because you're kind of thinking about it, you're processing, okay, what does the team need? What is the next best move? And then just miking up for that and focusing on playing your best.
Okay. Yeah, so it's kind of like a reminder, like your cue for assessing your tilt is like when you're going to press your mic button, essentially. Cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Neuro. Well, thank you very much. It was a really, really awesome session. I learned a lot from you, and I hope I can get back to you and show some improvement.
Hell
on
yeah.
my mental game.
I had a great conversation. Thanks for hanging out. It's cool hearing about the stuff that you run into as obstacles because 6K Dota is not a place that I've been before. So it's kind of like hearing what's ahead up in the mountains and the shit that you have to deal with. So thank you for sharing your experiences and having the courage for that.
Yeah, well, you have a great stream. Thank you so much for your time.
Hell yeah. I wish you very based and forgiving Dota games.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Hell yeah. That was an awesome talk. Thanks, chat, for tuning in.